Did Dark Irregulars just become very scary in Standard? We have to wait and see after today's video.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to part 4 of our set review of the Vilest Deletor of the latest set that just got released in Japan. And we already talked about most of the other clans, and today we're gonna focus about Dark Irregulars. And I think this is the one of the most interesting clans in this set. Of all the other clans, this was probably one of the weakest, and nobody really expected a lot from it, as seen as No Life King was a little bit too left desires for Standard. But compared to the other clans, I think Dark Irregulars got the most powerful cards in this set, of course except for Link Joker, but that's a story for another day. As today we're gonna step right into these new cards, so let's do that right now. So first off, we've got the 12k vanilla, just like any other clan in this set. And for Dark Irregulars, that's Succubus of Worldly Affairs. But once again, I give this one 2 stars, that I'm really on the fence about if these cards are really that good or not for Standard. But we have to wait and see with the results for the first support wave, as we still haven't got the 12k vanillas for Narukami and Oracle Think Tank here in the West. So just like Pale Moon, Dark Irregulars also got a trio of interesting cards, and these are the Cuddly cards. So first up, we got the Great One to talk about, Cuddly Breaker Pavra, and her skill is continuous on Rearguard Circle. If your Vanguard is Cuddly Killer Milchi, this unit gets power plus 10k. So if you have a specific grade 3, this one becomes an 18k attacker. With in consideration of the grade 3, how that one works, I give this one 2 stars, as it's a dead card in any kind of situation except if you have access to the grade 3. And that's not really that great unless the grade 3 is really strong or broken in a sense. But as you're going to see, that might not really be the case. Next up, we've got the grade 2, and that's Cuddly Assassin Sabina, and her skill is continuous Rearguard Circle. If your Vanguard is Cuddly Killer Milchi, this unit gets critical plus 1, so she becomes a 9k with a crit 2. If you combine it with the other grade 1, then that becomes a 27k column with an extra crit. But once again, it's limited to the grade 3, and it's a grade 2 that doesn't really do anything besides getting a crit. So early game it doesn't really do much, and also doesn't help with your soul charging. So I'll give this one as well 2 stars, as it might be a little bit limited in a sense. Now we're getting to the grade 3, and that is Cuddly Killer Milchi, and her skill is auto on Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, cost counter plus 1 and discard a card. Call a Cuddly Assassin Sabina and a Cuddly Breaker Pavra from your soul to the Rearguard Circle, and this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So she'll become a 17k attacker, and she generates these 2 new cards to the field. I give this one as well 2 stars, as this whole package is, in my opinion, a 2-star package, as it's a little bit but it can be really strong or good abused in a No Life King scenario, as you can attack with your No Life King or attack with the Rearguard, then attack with your No Life King, put the units into your soul, then rewrite this thing, and then use, when you attack with this thing at the second time with the 17k attack with a crit, you call out these 2 new cards onto the Rearguard Circle that's just emptied out by No Life King, and then you can attack with the 27k column with an extra crit. So you have 2 attacks with an extra crit. Looks really promising, but it's very one-dimensional play, and also it doesn't have a protect marker, and you need to discard another card. So you go really hard through your cards in hand for a deck that really doesn't plus that much. So that's why I only give it 2 stars for this trio. Then, unlike any other set review, I usually do the VR at the end part of the video, but as seen as most cards in this set really interact well with the VR, I want to talk about the VR at the beginning. So the VR for the Dark Irregulars, King of Mask, Dentarian. And this gigantic card has 3 really interesting skills. If you want to have a more in-depth analysis of this card, then I highly recommend you guys to check out this video, where I go over this card as well as the 2 supporting Succubus card that came with the review of this card. But his skills are continuous on Vanguard Circle. When you would call Guardians, you can call grade 2 or greater cards from your soul. You can call any number of cards to the Guardian Circle. So all your grade 2s and grade 3s become interceptors from the soul. That's really great in a deck that doesn't really draw that much and soul charges a lot, so all those high powered cards can now suddenly turn into an interceptor from the soul. It's really awesome against those really tough scenarios where you need to have that extra guard potential. His second skill is Auto on Vanguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn, you may soul charge too. So whenever a certain card is retired, then you can add more soul cards to your soul. Note that it doesn't say it through skill, so you can attack rearguards, and when they die through that, it also triggers a skill. And with the old support wave, we got Gwyn the Ripper that can also retire something with the skill. So Gwyn the Ripper will soul charge one on its own and then triggers this one. So it soul charges another 2 cards. So a really great interaction already with that. Then the final skill of this card is Auto and Vanguard Circle. When a grade 2 or greater card is put into the soul by a card ability, 3 of your rear guards get power plus 5k until the end of turn. So whenever you soul charge in grade 2 or greater, then you can suddenly power up your field even more. And when you combine it with that you can also guard with those cards later on, it's a really good versatile card. And you can make some really nice interaction with all the other cards that soul charge, retire, and go into the soul to power up your field even more. Note that it only can power rear guards, so it's a little bit limited in that. But if you have something like a Doreen the Thruster behind your Vanguard, then you have nothing to worry about. And as you're going to see, there's a lot of nice interaction with the upcoming cards, and that's why this card is definitely 5 stars in my book, as it's basically the VR that Dark Irregulars really needed to make it a very good deck. Now we're going to talk about the utility cards in this set, and the first one that's going to lead the pack is Pathfinder of Wind, and its skill is on a Vanguard Circle. When your drive check reveals a trigger unit, you may put a card into your soul, and if you put, soul charge 2. The downside of this card is that you will minus more on hand, as the trigger unit will go into the soul, and then you soul charge 2. So you will lose a powerful defensive card to get more soul. It can be useful in some scenarios, but in most cases it's very scary, as you're gonna be on a lower hand size. It's also 7k grade 1, so it might be hard with that. But what can be very good about this card is that it can be a final kill scenario. As your opponent might say 2 to pass, and you have a Doreen the Thruster behind your Vanguard or something, or they make a no pass, you can suddenly turn that no pass into a breakthrough for the guard if they didn't perfect guard it. As when you drive check a crit trigger, you can put the power on your Vanguard, then you use that skill, put it into the soul. Doreen, if that's behind your Vanguard, can gain plus 5k. Then you soul charge 2 cards, then Doreen will get another plus 10k, so suddenly the Vanguard increased with another 15k with the 10k, so that's plus 25k. But if the soul charge 2, the 2 soul charge cards contain a grade 2 or higher, then you can activate the Dentarian skill to power up the field even more, and you can see where this is going. Then you can power up Doreen with another 5k, and it can keep generating more and more power, and suddenly you break through their attack. So with that in mind, this card can be really powerful, but it's very limited in a specific scenario, and that's why I give it 2 stars, but it can be a very scary card. Next up, we got a grade 2, that's Awful Nil, and her skill is Auto and Vanguard the Vanguard Circle. When played, soul charge 1, and if the number of cards in your soul is 5 or more, this unit gets plus 5k until the end of power. This is a 2-star card in my mind, as it's basically the same like we have with the Beast grade 1, that's on play soul charge. And we already have other grade 2s that do that. Power level will not go up. It will stay only 40k in a single turn. And all the other cards that we already have access to will maintain their power. So that's why this isn't really that strong and really that great. So that's why only 2 stars. Next up, we have Dimension Creeper. And his skill is Continuous Vanguard Circle. If you have a grade 3 in your soul, this unit gets power plus 5k. So it becomes a 13k attacker. And that is really significant, as Dark Irregulars really had an issue to maintain that 13k base in some scenarios, and this one allows it even on a grade 1 unit, so that's really great to have that. And then second skill, Act from Soul, cost, counter plus 1, put this unit on the bottom of your deck, and you may soul charge 3 new cards. This skill is really great in the sense that it allows you to go fast through your deck, soul charge a lot of cards, but the main part about this card, why it's really incredible, is the fact that it goes bottom deck. The skill could have been Soul Charge 2, but because it's Soul Charge 3 and this unit goes bottom deck, it's even better, as when your bottom cards were triggers, you now have access to those bottom cards, as the Dimension Creepers will go beneath them, so you can drive check those potential last cards now if you have put 3 or 4 on the bottom of the deck. And that makes this card really great in late game scenarios. And that's why, in my personal opinion, this card is definitely 5 stars, as it really ramps up your soul, it fixes with a little bit of the power issue that you sometimes need, and it gives you access to your bottom cards in late game scenarios. Then next up, we've got another utility card, and that's Alluring Succubus, and her skills: Act on Vanguard Circle, cost, counter plus 1, put this unit into your soul, look at the 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 2 grade 3s from among them, put 1 into your hand and up to 1 into your soul, and shuffle your deck. What's great about this card is that one, it goes into the soul, so you add one more to your soul, and you get a chance to fix your hand, as checking top 7 it's very likely that you get a grade 3 in that. And if you have 2, you can immediately put 1 to the soul. So if you maybe want to run the awkward cute the killer milkshake combo, then you can use this skill to get that grade 3 into the soul more effectively and make the play a little bit more consistent. And this will work with any kind of play that works around multiple grade 3s, like No Life King and Antarian and all the other cards that really got like Demon Eater. And that makes this card really great, and that's why I give it 4 stars, as it's a good grade 1 option to filter out more grade 3s from your deck. Then to round out of these utility cards, we've got Master of Fifth Element, and his skills Auto on Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, if you have 15 or more cards in your soul cost, put all cards from your hand and soul into the drop zone and stand all of your units. This card can be really dangerous against your opponent, but also very dangerous for you, as at the end of this turn, you will have only 4 drive checks left, as when it attacks, you ditch everything. So you also lose the protect marker when you wrote this thing. So you have the twin drive, and when it stands, you have another twin drive. And those are the cards that you're left with to defend yourself. What's really great about this card is that you can combine it with No Life King to make some insane OTK plays where you can restand your Vanguard 3 times, as first with an NOK, then you attack, rewrite into this thing will get a crit, and then you can attack twice with a crit Vanguard. And if you combine it with something like a Doreen the Thruster behind it, it can be a very powerful double Vanguard attack with a crit. But the card is really depending on the player, as it can backfire very easily. And because of that fact, I give this one 4 stars, as it probably won't be included in every deck, but it will find its way in some particular decks, and it will work in some scenarios. So that's why it's definitely 4-star card, and I really like the design of this card. It's a very powerful card, but it is risky to use. Then next up, we've got 2 cards that synergizes really well with the Dentarian defensive skill from the Soul. And the first one of those cards is Dark Soul Conductor. This grade 2 has a skill Auto on Guardian Circle. When placed, if your Soul and Damage Zone have 10 or more cards in total, you may have this unit get shield plus 10 until the end of the battle. If you do, when this unit would be retired for that battle, put it on the bottom of the deck instead. So this is a grade 2 that becomes a 15k block and goes to the bottom of the deck just like Dimension Creeper. So it has the upside to that, and it becomes a nice shield. The only downside to this card is that it's pure defensive. It doesn't really do anything for offensive. It doesn't really help with any kind of upset plays. It's only really great if you either call it from hand to the field or that you soul charge. And I think if you use with Dentarian, you're probably going to want to soul charge it, as you get more value from it than if you need a -1 on hand to activate its skill. So I give it 2 stars for that, as it's very, very limited in the use of it, and the value is very restrictive in the scenarios that you can get something out of it. Next up, we got the grade 3, and that is Death Demonic Duke Baal. And his skills are Auto on Rearguard Circle and Guardian Circle. When placed, if your soul has 5 or more cards, this unit gets power plus 5k and shield plus 5k until the end of turn. So it becomes a 70k attacker whenever you call it to the field, or it becomes a 5k interceptor or guard when you call it to the Guardian Circle in the right scenarios. And if you soul charge this thing with Dentarian, then you can call it out from the soul to guard with it, and it has some shield value. So you get more shield in your deck, as since now grade 3 will also have a shield value. That's really great in that it's more versatile than something like Dark Soul Conductor. But he has a second skill, and that's Auto on Rearguard Circle. When it attacks, cost, counter +1, put another grade 2 or greater rearguard into your soul, and choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retires it. And this is really awesome in combination with Dentarian, as it puts a grade 2 or higher rearguard from you into the soul, so it activates Dentarian's skill that it power-ups 3 rearguards now, so that's really great. And the second fact is that it retires something from your opponent's field, so now you soul charge 2 extra cards, so it synergizes well with basically all the skills of Dentarian. And in that sense, I give it 3 stars, as it's a very good versatile card, but it only works really well with Dentarian, as it doesn't really do that much for No Life King or for anything else. So it's a great supporting grade 3. It's not a main run grade 3. Then we get to the supporting cards for Dentarian that also help with retiring rearguards. And the first one of these cards is Direful Noise. And this grade 1 has the skill Auto Rearguard Circle. When the attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, cost, put it into your soul, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retires it. I give the one 3 stars as it's basically the generic way of retiring something. You put this one in soul, so it's +1 soul. Instead of all the other decks, for Dark Regulars, this is actually pretty damn good. And you retire something, so you will trigger Dentarian skill that you can soldiers another 2 cards. What's also great about this is in the early game, your opponent probably don't want to let this thing through, so they're forced to guard lower numbered attacks more often. And in a protect case, that's pretty damn what you want, as the more they focus on guarding early game, the harder it is for them to guard late game. So it has a good merit in that, and that's why I think 3 stars is really damn worth for this card, as it's a good overall for versatile card in what it does. Then next up we got a grade 2, and that has skill Auto Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguard is retired, during your turn, cost counter +1, soul charge 1, and this unit gets power +10k until the end of turn. So whenever a unit is retired, you can turn a counter blast into a soul charge, and this one will gain another 10k. It's a pretty damn good card in the sense that it works really well with all these retire effects, and it also is not restricted to that it needs to be through skill, so you can attack a rearguard and then you can power up this field. And counterblast one for a soul charge isn't really that bad, as you have something else that really helps with counter charge, as we're going to talk about later. And that's why I give this one 4 stars, as the extra 10k is really needed to pressure out late game. Combine it with Dentarian's +5 to the entire field the whole game. It can be really scary with all these high numbers you're generating. Then the grade 2 that I was referring to is Authority of Water, and her skill is Auto Rearguard Circle. Once per turn, when your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn, if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, countercharge 1. This card is phenomenal. The way that you can generate countercharges now with this card is insane. You had the countercharge combination of the previous set where you needed to do 2 cards with Frolla Claws and Ruthven. This one just, oh, I attack a rearguard, they didn't defend, I countercharge 1. And getting the 10 in soul isn't really that hard now with Dentarian Soldiers 2 entirely and all the other cards that goes in soul. Getting soul is a lot easier now. And it works with skills. So when you use the silhouette tracker, you counter +1, soldiers 1, get 10k, then you activate her skill, then countercharge 1 immediately. And you can all these crazy plays that you can keep using your counter blast, and you gotta get it back and the back and the back. And that's why I definitely give this card 5 stars, as although it's a 9k that only generates counter charge, with Dentarian and all these other retire skills, it can work. It can really work some wonders in a specific retire build. And that looks really great right now. Then the last card that I want to talk about is Flirtatious Succubus. And this was basically the main grade 2 in comparison with Dentarian. And her skills are Auto Rearguard Circle. At the end of battle that attack the Vanguard, cost, put this unit into your soul, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and retire it. And our other skills, act from soul, cost, counter +1, and discard a card from hand, and return this card to your hand. This is basically a free retire card that goes in the soul, retire something. This triggers again 2 of the Dentarian skills. You get the power under the field, and you get the soul charge too. And then later you can get it, the next turn you can get it back to your hand and then call it again and use the skill once again and again and again and again. So you have a retire on demand. And in combination this with Authority of Water, you can generate counter charge from free as soon as this goes into the soul and retire something for free. And that's why this card is also a 5-star card in my book. Although it's an 8k, again with the 5k pluses onto the field with Dentarian, it isn't really that bad to deal with. And 8k hits the magic numbers against force, as 8 becomes 13, 18, 23. So I think it's a great card with the way that it works. And that's basically all the cards for Dark Irregulars. We've seen a lot of interesting cards. We have seen this trio that looks a little bit awkward, but with NOK can become something interesting. Also, the Master of Fifth Element is something that looks really promising with NOK. But besides the NOK support cards, we also got this new Dentarian build that focuses more about retiring your opponent's field and at the same time gaining a lot of power, and also have the way to guard from your soul, so you fix the issue that you have a low hand size. And you can even combine it with NOK for a late game finishing turn if you have the resources set and done. So I think Dark Irregulars is really looking really promising after this set, and I think it's really gonna regain its status after the initial first wave that didn't really make a splash in standard, and I probably think that Dentarian is able to do that. But with that, we talked about everything for Dark Irregulars, and I want to know what you guys think of these cards and basically the ratings that I gave, if I missed something or overlooked something, and also what kind of builds are you gonna try out? Are you gonna go the NOK route with maybe Master 5th Element or the Cutley series, or are you going more towards the Dentarian route with all these new retire skills like the Succubus cards and whatnot? I'm very curious what you guys think about these cards and what you come up with your builds, so let the discussion go flowing in the comments down below, and join me tomorrow when I go over the last part, part 5 of the set review of Vilest Deletor, where we're going to talk about the leaders, as seen as that's all about the Link Joker cards. But as always guys, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.